Hello. Is this working? It's not working. For this, just my voice. Okay. So the mic is going to work just for the live stream, I suppose, and here I'll be vocalizing for you. So if there's any problem hearing me, please just raise your hand or whatever. To start with, welcome. I hope you have a generative 3 hours or so here, so we will probably go up till 8:45, everything included. The first thing I wanted to say is that this is a masked event, so we request you to please put on some masks. If you don't have them, we have a bunch right up there by the gate. Some of the other logistics things, the toilet is right up through here if you need to get there at some point. And the exit, of course, is where you came through, but there's also an emergency exit right here should any need arise. Okay. So broadly how today is structured, so we'll start off with a report grounding us in what's happening in Palestine currently. That'll be about 5 minutes. After that, we'll go on to the report that we are doing a kind of soft launch on that we have been working on for a long period of time. It's a pretty lengthy report, kind of going into all the relationship, different aspects of the relationship between India and Israel and why this specific campaign that we have been part of for a year now. So we are doing a soft launch of that today, and you'll find the full report about a week or so from now. We'll be launching it on our website and socials and everything. So we'll have a report about that. That'll be about 20 minutes. After that, we'll hear from a runner who is participating with the New York Roadrunners, and they'll speak about this campaign from that perspective. We'll have some people, after that we'll have, just before that, we'll have about a half-hour presentation about the campaign. So the Drop TCS campaign, why we are targeting Tata Consultancy Services, what's going on with the marathon, and so on. And after we hear from Adib from NYRR, we have speakers from other organizations in terms of how this relates to what's going on with different aspects of the movement for Palestine. And after that, we'll break around, after some question answers for about 20 minutes, around 8:15, we'll stop the live stream. And at 8:15, we'll go into breakout groups to talk more to each other and see what we can do to build the campaign wherever we are. So before we get going, just a couple of community agreements. Please come in, have a seat. The first thing is that we are not here to speak as experts in any capacity. This is organizational research which we are sharing with you. So please contribute in terms of what you are finding here that we may be getting right or not, and so on. So this is meant to be a kind of collaborative process to talk with each other. Respectful disagreement is encouraged, so please do share. Also, our primary objective here is to think of the liberation of Palestine, and specifically to think of how we can connect these struggles that are happening in terms of connecting the projects that are happening in India with Zionism and the US imperial project. So we are trying to expose the connections between these and think of how we can target them. So SALAM, if you do not, actually, for how many of you is this a first SALAM event? If you can show your hands. Oh, fantastic, welcome, welcome. So SALAM is a New York-based group. It is a multi-tendency leftist group which draws upon different traditions of revolutionary Marxism, anti-caste struggle, and feminist organizing. So we try to be in conversation with movements in South Asia, as well as specifically, of course, in the New York area. So I think with that, I'll pass on to, I believe, Sami is doing the report.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sami. I'm a SALAM member. Before we begin, you guys look lazy, so I'm going to start with a chant. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. From the sea to the river. Palestine will live forever. From the sea to the river. Palestine will live forever. On October 7th, 2023, SALAM responded to the unequivocal victory of the Palestinian resistance in proving the paper tiger that is the Zionist occupation a paper tiger. We understood that a hole had been punctured. We understood that we stand in a new world. And so we mobilized. We marched along with you guys, along with our neighbors. And over 2 years of brutal genocide and violence, we have been in the streets. We have been at events like this. And not just in solidarity with the Palestinian people and the brutality that they suffered, no, also for us. Also because we inhabit a completely different world. And it is our responsibility to be accountable to that world. And as we've seen the glorious images coming out of occupied Palestine over the past few days, scores of political prisoners, detainees being released in mass. This is an unequivocal victory on behalf of the Palestinian resistance, which is to stand rooted in the land. And we have to understand that our responsibility in the colonial metropole is distinct. In October of 2023, SALAM decided to not just mobilize, but also to really think about what is our critical position as South Asian Marxists in the colonial metropole, right? And so we created, right, and you can read our newspaper, we created along with our comrades at WAWAG, a document, right, a newspaper that really delineated the ethno-nationalist collaboration between the countries of India and Israel. And this document was not just informational, it was a roadmap to action. It was an infrastructural instruction manual for where, how, and what to strike. And we'll be getting into some of that report today. It started off as a newspaper, and over 2 years of relentless action, we have sublimated into a report which really visibilizes the connection between these two ethno-nationalist entities. This stands within two prongs, right? One is, of course, solidarity with the Palestinian people. One is, of course, solidarity with Kashmir and everyone who is facing the brunt of the genocidal Indian state as well. But it's also in collaboration with a host of other organizations around New York City. You could see PYM targeting the logistics giant Maersk. You can see Palo Alto. You can see the Citibank campaign, right? You can see the port workers of New York and New Jersey that are demanding that we not ship arms to the Zionist entity, right? This is a call, direct call from the Palestinian resistance to strike at the very logistics and the infrastructure of genocide. And we have to understand the special role of New York City in carrying out the blood and the logistics of that genocide. TCS and Tata, which are companies that we'll get into today, are specific Indian companies that carry out the labor and the logistics and the infrastructure of genocide right here in our neighborhoods. And then they use those very neighborhoods to launder their reputation, a reputation we know is soaked in blood. We understand our responsibility as organizers and as neighbors to visibilize that complicity and to strike at the very heart of that complicity. In order to be in solidarity with the images that we see coming out of Palestine of political prisoners being free after decades in captivity, we must understand where these ethno-nationalist alliances originate from. And that's exactly what we'll be getting into today. And with that, I'll pass it on to my comrade Iman, who will get into how we understand India-Israel ties, what are the ethno-nationalist connections, and what SALAM is really doing to strike at the core of these connections. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Iman, also part of SALAM. So this campaign that we're launching today is Tata Bye Bye. We've been doing it for a couple years now. But we're entering a new phase with our report. And so we hope today to just give you a little more information on the report itself and also just rehash some information in time for the marathon that's coming up in November. So this is our coalition and endorsers. We at SALAM try really hard to reach out to other orgs across the city and have made a lot of connections internationally as well with people who are aligned and groups that are aligned with the Palestinian cause and also for the liberation cause. And this has been our movement so far. We've already had a presence at the marathon. We had one last year. We handed out bibs and did a few teach-ins leading up to it. And we're hoping to get into more this year. We also did a teach-in, well, several teach-ins, but one of them was with some authors that wrote about the Israel-India tie specifically. And this was also part of our collection of information around this. Yeah. So understanding India-Israel ties, it's really extensive and there's quite a lot, but we basically broke it down into 3 sections. The first phase is covert ties. So though India was a huge supporter of Palestine publicly from the 40s to the 90s, they voted against the UN resolution 181, which was to partition Palestine, which was one of the first phases of recognizing Israel. They also were supportive of the PLO in 74, recognizing them, and they recognized the Palestinian state in 88. They still were buying weapons from Israel, from the Israeli military, and partnering with them in surveillance activities, like minor surveillance activities, through the 60s and the 70s. Then we entered phase 2, which was dehyphenation, which is where India was more public about recognizing both Israel and Palestine. In 1992, they officially established full diplomatic ties with Israel. And then this is where we see major arms deals and increased institutionalized security ties that followed. Then in 2008, there was a really big attack in Mumbai, known as the Mumbai terrorist attack. And this led to 2 really big things happening. First, it kicked off increased investment into the surveillance military state, which kind of ramped up investment to the point where in 2012, Israel was India's 2nd largest weapons dealer. And then it also justified an increase in general Islamophobia as part of the nation building. And this is important because it played into the India-Pakistan tensions, which is a huge justification for military investment. It also made India feel ideologically closer to Israel in their anti-Islam message, and within that, furthered military goals to take over Kashmir and demonize Kashmiri Muslims, but we'll come back to that. Then in phase 3, this is kind of the most blatant that we've seen so far, open strategic partnership. This is where we enter the Modi era, pushed by the BJP. And this is also where we see like the role of multinationals really take hold. This is central to our campaign. And this is like the multinationals really partnered specifically in the military sector. For example, things like the Elbit system, one of Israel's most sophisticated drone projects. Indian multinationals have their hands all over that. Including Tata. And the Haifa port project, which is the biggest Israeli port, was recently bought by an Indian multinational for, I think, $1.2 billion. These are 2 large examples. And this became a really big collaboration point, also with the Indian government collaborating with Israel to install the Pegasus surveillance system, specifically to use on Kashmiris, but also to use at the Indian government's convenience to police citizens as well, all over India. And that's where we leave off in 2023. India voted against a lot of resolutions for ceasefire, for arms embargo against Israel. They abstained from vote. And then in 2025, they have signed a bilateral investment treaty to further both economic and military ties. And that's where we leave off today. And so just to illustrate the scope of the financial ties, the military ties have grown to be valued at between 1 to 2 billion per year in recent years. And so it's quite a significant collaboration. They're the second largest, India is the second largest exporter of weaponry to Israel after the US. And so this has been a crucial part of maintaining genocidal or maintaining the genocide within Israel and also within India with the Kashmiris. And then also just to look at this graph, this kind of shows how embedded Israeli ties are within Indian cities. This is all the spots in which like Israeli military manufacturing has a presence. And this is just for weapons manufacturing. This is not for commercial ties as well, which is much more extensive. But as you can see, it's clearly very embedded already. And these are some of our great major companies that have decided to do the dirty work. Special shout out to Adani, Reliance, Wipro. Pretty great. Yeah. And so why commit so heavily to the bit? Why do something so wrong? I think we can all guess, but also we can run it back. There's a cheap labor market to be had. India has been exporting a lot of cheap labor to Israel to make up for the Palestinians that have been murdered and persecuted as a result of increased genocidal actions. There's also early-ish access to really cool, amazing weaponry, like the F-35. India is helping with manufacturing and now is an indigenous manufacturer, meaning they can manufacture the entire plane in Indian territory. So they have premier access to one of the biggest and best fighter jets in the country right now, or sorry, in the world right now and in America. And also they get to deepen their ideological ties and expand on their settler colonial projects together. Israel with Palestine and India with Kashmir. And so to speak more on the Kashmiris, like the Palestinians, know what it means to be deprived of not only their home, their land, and their livelihood, but also their dignity, and what it's like to ask a thief for your rights. This is really significant because, as I said earlier, the Pegasus program is the main surveillance tool to be implemented in occupying Kashmir. But that was brought in by Israel, and they've been collaborating since the 90s to the point where now Kashmir is one of the most heavily occupied territories in the world after Gaza, and the Indians use the same tactics that the Israelis have used on the Palestinians to continue this oppression. And so now I'll hand it over to Aman on exposing Tata.
Thank you, Iman, and thank you, Sami, and thank you everyone for coming here. Can we go to the next slide? So we've been working on a research report for the past couple of months to sort of consolidate all the research we've done, leading up to selecting Tata and primarily listing out all the ways Tata's connected. But I'm not assuming Tata is not a household name where we are standing. So I'm not assuming everyone knows. To just give you a sense of what Tata is, it's one of the largest Indian conglomerates. It has more than about 150 subsidiaries. So just to give a sense of that, I'm just going to read this quote out. We all watch Tata Sky. We surf the net with Tata Photon. We ride in Tata taxis. We stay in Tata hotels. We sip our Tata tea in a Tata bone china and stir it with teaspoons made of Tata steel. We buy Tata books in Tata bookshops. Hum Tata ka namak khate hain. It roughly translates to we owe our sustenance to Tata. We are under siege. This gives you a sense for how embedded Tata is in specifically in India, but it's increasingly being so all over the world. So from it's known as the steel to salt conglomerate because it covers the whole range. It's present in every sector, almost every sector. So so Tata was founded in 1868 during the British colonization of India, and it grew on the backs of supplying expeditions that the British had in Ethiopia and Iraq. So it provided military uniforms. It gave some other supplies for the soldiers to occupy Ethiopia for the British colonial army. And that really saved the day for Tata at that time. And through its linkages with British capital and the British government, they were able to prop up really an empire. So the first steel manufacturing plant, the first major institution of higher education, the first first airline. All of that was started by Tata in India. So they have built up this image of like being this like great industrializer. So on the one hand, like they were able to do that with their ties to the British Empire at before independence. Oh, sorry. But at the same time, they were funding the independence movements as well, the anti-colonial movements as well. So when partition happened in 1947, when the British left India, they had already very close ties with the new government that emerged and the capitalist classes. So they were one of the major capitalist class that helped to industrialize India, and that's the image that has sustained for a very long time. So it's also true at the same time that Tata, I mean, it's a 150-year-old corporation that we're talking about that's present in every aspect of society in India. So it's also true that Tata does a lot of philanthropy. So an unusually large share of its earnings goes into philanthropic efforts or like funding higher education institutions, funding non-profits, funding and giving donations and sponsoring events like the Tata Consultancy Services New York City Marathon, which we will get to very soon. So what's the deal with them? They are just how they're present in so many sectors. They're especially very big in defense. So they are very deeply complicit. So they produce many components of Israel's genocidal infrastructure. I mean, and the report is really focused on detailing different parts of it, like where they are manufactured, like what are the different circuits they travel through, and how do they ultimately sell arms to Israel and engage in other commercial activities with Israel. The four major ones, they supply vehicles that patrol Palestinian land, particularly very big in West Bank. So these are armored vehicles. Tata owns Jaguar Land Rover, which provides the chassis and like the vehicles themselves that are then used by the IDF forces directly to patrol. They supply weapons components. So they manufacture weapons themselves and armored cars and missile systems in India, but they are also manufacturing weapons components in collaboration with other large defense manufacturers like Lockheed, like Raytheon, and they then supply that. Could you go to another slide? There's the one forward, one more. Yeah, this one. So it's a case study of the Tata and the Lockheed Martin case. It's very illuminating in that way of like how it's not that visible. Like the fighter jets that you'll see are not made by Tata itself. But so what happens is Tata Lockheed Martin Aerostructures, it's a subsidiary of Tata Advanced Systems. It manufactures the fighter jet wings, which is the sole manufacturer of that in the world for Lockheed. And that's why it's pretty essential. And this is manufactured in India, and it goes to Greenville in the US, where they are then assembled together into the F-16 bomber jets, which are then delivered to the IDF, which actually have been very frequently used throughout the past 2 years of the genocide and in the occupation before that. Could you go to the, no, more front? One more front. Yeah, so that's the weapons components part of it. And then the third one is cloud computing. So what my comrade was talking about was the Pegasus spyware software. There's another major surveillance software within Israel that Israel uses is the Project Nimbus. And so Tata provides the IT backend for hosting Project Nimbus onto the cloud. So, and together with that, it also provides, what they do is, if a bank wants to go digital, like they will approach Tata, and Tata will provide the runway to for it to digitize for a lot of like Israeli financial institutions. So these are like some major 4 areas that we have mapped out. And by the way, the report is mostly we've scraped the web. So this is nothing like we haven't done any kind of investigative work. it's all out there, but because of its really big philanthropic image, it's really hard to find this material like all in one place. And it's really even harder to do something like that from India. Could you go to the next slide? Yeah, these are some other partnerships that it has with insurance companies, with logistics companies, with education institutions that directly work with Israel to sustain its infrastructure. Move ahead. Yeah, Tata in the US. So Tata is also a very big presence in the US, even though it's not a household name. It started its operations like in 1945. It's been a while, but it's especially escalated it since the 1990s. And so, for instance, if you go to if you go to a supermarket and buy 8 o'clock coffee or Tetley tea, if you go to New Jersey and buy jewelry in Tanishq stores, if you want to fly to India, you'll take Air India. If one of the largest luxury hotels, one of the most prestigious luxury hotels in New York City is the Pierre, which is also owned by Tata. So all of these enterprises are owned by Tata. And yeah, so there are about 12 Tata subsidiaries, and it has like everything from like coffee, steel, chemical production, automotive production, the list goes on. It's also the largest sponsor of H-1B work visas from India. It comes up number 5 overall. Yeah, can you move on? So yeah, next. Yeah, and particularly in higher education, this is also something we've been mapping out. Cornell is the biggest one, which I think Tata is the largest donor to Cornell. It has a Tata Innovation Center right here in Roosevelt Island. That's in the Cornell campus. Then MIT also has like a Tata MIT Alliance, which is fairly active. And UCSD, the chancellor of UCSD is a Tata Consultancy Services board member, and they also receive like a lot of professorships and money from Tata directly. And these are just the 3 major examples, but Tata is present in more than like 10, 15 higher education institutions in the US directly. Go to the next one. Yeah, next. Yeah, so basically, why are we going on about this? Why are we talking about Tata, right? The thing is that a occupation does not happen and continue on its own. It needs funding. It needs some kind of a political normalization. It needs arms. It needs infrastructure. All of that a company like Tata provides to Israel directly for the occupation of Palestine, for continuing the apartheid, and to be able to wage such genocidal wars. So there is no doubt about that Tata is complicit and that Tata is helping to sustain such occupations. The second point is that Israel is increasingly getting isolated. Just a few weeks ago, there's this US running brand called Saucony that cut ties with the Jerusalem Marathon because it got a lot of pushback for boycott. Right? Then when the Gaza-bound flotilla was completely ransacked and all its members were kidnapped by the Israeli Defense Forces, there was a general strike called by all Italian trade unions because its country wasn't doing enough. So and this was just like, I'm talking about the past few weeks. So increasingly, there is a consensus being developed. Israel is being isolated, and this is one step in that direction, is that we have to more and more isolate Israel, and we have to make sure that nobody can do any business with an occupation. And Tata, the broader point here is that this is not just about Tata. But when we target corporations like Tata, others also back down. And this makes an impact in the broader sense of things. So what we are trying to do is map out these circuits of capital, of their different like supply chains, and see where it is that we can pressurize. Because there are always people around who are sympathetic and who don't know how these corporations are involved, how the services and the production systems that they use are directly involved. And there are always places there to organize against that. And so Tata is like one node that connects all of this, and it's very present where we are. So I will now pass it on to my comrade Shri, who's going to talk about the marathon, which is going to happen in a couple of weeks.
Hello, everyone. Should I use the mic? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Hello. Thank you for coming on a Friday evening. Really appreciate your time, and they all took time to be here. Myself and my comrade Sabina, who will be taking over the second half of this presentation, we're going to take you through a few slides on Drop TCS, which is the action-oriented part of our campaign. Yeah, so as Aman and Iman so wonderfully laid out kind of the research we've been doing for the past, 2 years at this point, and as Iman mentioned, this has really laid kind of a roadmap as to how we want to conduct ourselves in this campaign. But research and knowledge building needs to lead to action, right? How can we use what we have found to guide ourselves in actually showing up in the streets for Palestine liberation against the bloodthirsty corporation of Tata? And so our efforts have basically culminated into something called the Drop TCS campaign, which, as the name suggests, is the campaign's pressure and escalatory tactics that have been rebranded as Drop TCS, which is, the name of the campaign as it stands. So that's kind of the differentiation between Tata Bye Bye and Drop TCS. We're still under like Tata Bye Bye. It's just more of the pressure and escalatory tactic part of this campaign. And so, we've been building with runners. As, we mentioned a few times, the marathon is a really big turning point, a big visibility and pressure point for us, because TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, is the title sponsor of the New York City Marathon. It is one of the biggest marathons in the country. It is highly well known. People from all around the world come and run it. So it's an excellent intervening point for us as a campaign, to bring awareness to the ties between Tata and Israel. And so, we've been building with runners since 2024. We were at the marathon last year, which I think Iman mentioned, and we'll kind of take you through what we plan for this year. But, first I want to get into why runners. Runners are a very big part of this part of the campaign. First of all, this campaign really hopes to build on the ethos that runners bring to their sport, right? Like, runners are very dedicated. They wake up at 5 a.m., they run 20 miles. It's easy work for them. Not for everyone, right? Like, I'm barely getting to running and it's killing me. But you know what? It's an excellent ethos that we really want to build into our campaign. This campaign is for runners, by runners. We are not moving against runners because they are one of the biggest stakeholders in the Drop TCS campaign. So, first thing we want you to consider is that running is, not everyone sees it as a political act. But the point is, you're using your body, you're moving through geographical space. That space itself already has a lot of implications in terms of where you're running. Take New York City, for example. There's different, the zip code that you run through in New York City defines so many things about your environment, the kind of people that live there, the kind of climate you're running through even. So much of running is also racialized. If you think about Ahmaud Arbery, shot while running black, that itself already politicizes running from the get-go. And running is also such a visible thing to do. You're moving your body through space, what you wear, how you conduct yourself, who you're running with, all that is observable. And so those are really key ways we can tap into the running community in order to build and make our call to Drop TCS very visible. So just to make this idea a little bit more tangible, we were like, okay, what are some ways that running has been used for protests in the past? We aren't new at this, right? So one of the most prominent ways we found is obviously within occupied Palestine. This is called the Right to Movement. And so runners within occupied Palestine basically, use their bodies, move through space to kind of bring attention to the fact that their movement is restricted by the Zionist entity. Not only that, they do not have 26 contiguous miles of space to run. 26 miles is how long a marathon is. Think about the fact that they don't have that space to live, let alone run. That is very important to think about. Especially, you know, we are all on settler colonial land, right? So we have to be very conscious about the fact that where we run, the fact that we are running on stolen land here in the United States, on stolen indigenous land, that is also something we need to be very aware of. Again, makes running very political. So yeah, wanted to share that with y'all. Next slide. Yeah, okay, so now to kind of get into, I think this has already been like said by our comrades from the research report. This kind of, again, is just to reiterate the very tangible ways that TCS specifically is linked to the apartheid state of Israel. What I kind of want to just get at here is kind of is this overarching theme of this invisibilized structure of oppression, right? This is all tech and propping up of things like Project Nimbus, of surveillance, of propping up of supply chains that bring and manufacture arms to Israel. These are things that aren't readily available to us to find and see. Like Aman said, we had to scrape the internet for these kinds of connections, right? This isn't just readily out there. So what we want to highlight through targeting TCS is that this is also how systemic oppression and genocide has also kind of like modified itself. We have to go after these sort of infrastructural systems as well that prop up the ability for the Zionist entity to conduct its genocide and accelerated genocide in the past 2 years. So with that, I'd like to double down the fact that, you know, Data and TCS have honed this benevolent image of capitalism, of their corporate presence. You know, in India, they're hailed as the company that industrialized, as modernized India, gave jobs to people. But you have to, you know, take into account all the information that we have just shared, and we have to recognize that they have a real penchant for occupation, for displacement of people, and for enabling the structures that allow that to happen. And so I would like to call upon all of us here to intervene. And one of the ways to do so is through the New York City Marathon, which is right here in our backyard. And as New Yorkers, this is exactly the type of way that we can show up for Palestine in our streets. Yeah, I think that's me. So I'm gonna hand it to Sabina now, and she'll take you to the rest of this presentation.
Thank you, Shri. So in terms of TCS in the marathon, I'm here to kind of walk you through how TCS has entrenched itself into the sport of running and effectively whitewashed its image. And it's not because of its benevolent presence or its ethos, it's literally because of the incentive to profit. So it's very profitable for them to align themselves with the sport. So how did TCS become the namesake sponsor of the New York Marathon? Well, it began with a technology consulting partnership in 2010, and then it expanded to an 8-year contract that extended its title and technology sponsorship through 2029. TCS positions itself as an indispensable to runners, primarily through tracking technologies, aka surveillance. TCS has pledged itself to use technology to make New York City Marathon, quote unquote, the most technologically advanced and socially engaged marathon in the world, furthering its quote unquote commitment to social change. Brand building internally and globally is a critical component to TCS's entrenchment in the sport. And we found out that across 14 marathons, TCS sponsors each year, about 8,000 of their employees and 4,000 of their customers participate in the companies in the marathon, and 607,000 of their employees, or 1/3 of them, are runners in some capacity. This highlights the alignment between the dedication required for marathons and TCS's alleged professional ethos. it's clearly really profitable to be the sponsor of the New York City Marathon. This initial article was actually from 2023, and we had to update it because it's now $21.3 billion that they've been able to effectively scale to as a brand. And so, as we've mentioned throughout this presentation, the marathon is a massive event, and it makes a huge branding opportunity for Tata. For them, it's all about visibility. And it's successfully built such a brand internationally by using marathons worldwide to whitewash its reputation. So people align the Tata brand with marathons and running as opposed to a death-making company. And apart from New York City, TCS actually sponsors London and Sydney marathons, as well as 12 other marathons across the world. And to further the point, we actually found that it's really effective in strengthening their brand because about brand consideration among runners is about 67% versus non-runners being 27%. And it's just basically because they associate TCS with marathons as opposed to war profiteering. And they've begun to value TCS as basically a partner and an entity that they supports their sport. TCS started sponsoring marathons a couple of years after its 2004 IPO with the goal of raising its brand profile, according to Kumar, their CMO. Before the push into marathons, TCS actually had a wide variety of sponsorships across different sports, including Formula One, cycling, and cricket. But after the marathon with New York City, TCS quite literally hit the ground running and let go of all of their other sports sponsorships to double down into the sport of running. And I actually think that quote from the CMO, once we discovered the magic of marathons, we made a decision about 15 years ago that we shut down everything else, is really illustrative of how profitable and just beneficial it is for them to align themselves with this sport specifically. And going off of Shree's point regarding why target New York Roadrunners and the New York Marathon specifically, they're in our backyard, right? And we have direct access to them to cut ties with TCS specifically. And we're just joining a broader coalition of campaigns that want war profiteers out of our city. That is why we're asking TCS to be no longer the marathon sponsor. We were, as mentioned prior throughout this presentation, at the 2024 NYC Marathon, and it's basically the inception of the Drop TCS campaign. And in the lead up to the marathon, we tabled at all 3 days of the Bib Expo, and we gave runners basically bibs that called on NYRR to drop TCS. We set up solidarity sites at strategic locations in the route, as well as did some banner drops to just really highlight that New York Roadrunners needs to drop TCS, as well as runners are aligned with Palestine. So in terms of our escalatory strategy, we actually are flooding their mail rooms right now with Drop TCS postcards, and we actually really do ask that you guys sign some as well so we can really, really hone in on the fact that the community is also aligned to this ask. We have also sent a very strongly worded email to their strategic partnerships team demanding that they disclose and divest their relationship with TCS. And we also have the marathon action coming up, as well as a slew of events that we are going to align and show up in solidarity with runners so that we can continue demanding that NYRR drop TCS as their sponsor. So, in terms of events coming up, we have a slew of art builds. In order to make this action on November 2nd successful, we need your help in terms of building out the beautiful visuals that will illustrate the fact that we don't want war profiteers whitewashing their image through this sport and that we want them out of our city. We also do have another group run and teach-in with the Palestine Solidarity Runners, which will take place on 10/27 in Central Brooklyn. And lastly, we do need volunteers to help us with the Bib Expo, because we'll be posted up outside there, passing out bibs to runners so that they can also show their solidarity with Palestine, as well as indicate their ask to drop TCS.
Sorry. Okay. And yeah, I'm just gonna go in a little bit more detail about like the action for this year. It's very largely similar to last year, which is we will have 2 solidarity sites along the route of the marathon. By solidarity site, I mean we're gonna show up in numbers, right? We want to be visible. We want to make Palestine front and center. So we're asking folks, if you're a spectator, show up to one of our solidarity sites. It's going to be either in Long Island City near the Queensboro Bridge or in Harlem on Fifth Ave. Those are 2 really critical points because they're highly visible, and we can maybe hopefully like get runners to slow down, do an interview with us, talk to us about why they're running the marathon, why they're wearing the bib that says drop TCS now. So we really want to generate support for our runners running with us. We want to get spectators involved. We want folks to see us. We want them to hear us calling for NYR to drop TCS. So yeah, we're just excited. And we'll also have hopefully banner drops along the way. So really just making sure we're out there in numbers, visible, and love to see you all there. So we'll share more information about that soon. Yeah. And with that, I would like to we're going to take questions first. Any questions? That was a lot of information, either from the research presentation earlier or for the drop TCS portion of the presentation. Any questions before we continue on with some of our other speakers for today? Yes. Great question. Would any of you like to take it? Only because I've been up here talking. Sure. Yeah.
They're scared shitless. Like they last year at there was this panel event that they had, and we were so under capacity we weren't even going to target it. And one of our NYR comrades was like, they had security at that event. They were like waiting for someone to like stand up and start screaming. And I think both TCS and NYR are entities that are very invested in their public image, right? TCS actually has a numeric understanding of how much this partnership means to them, right? And so they're very invested in the fact that they don't want this to be exposed, right? And same with NYR. I mean, NYR is like a nonprofit, right? And they believe in health for communities, et cetera, et cetera. And mostly they ignore us, right? But we have moles on the inside. We have people who know there's like a lot of disgruntlement on the inside. But I think, especially with this NYC Marathon this time, and then also continuing to do stuff, right? To show up to their offices, to demand a meeting. And they're all runners. So they're all like outside. So, pulling up to them, just being like, what's up? Yeah.
I'll pass the mic to whoever has a question so the question can be heard on the live stream. So please just raise your hand and I'll pass the mic back here so they can answer.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. You guys talked a little bit about like Tata's role in the genocide in Israel. I would be curious to hear if you guys know what Tata's role has been in I don't know if you guys have heard of like the Operation Kagar inside of India against like the Maoist insurgency. It's an effort to effectively extinguish, the Maoists by 2026. I'm sure this company has been playing some role in that. I'd be curious if you guys could comment on that.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out because we didn't cover too much about Tata in India itself, but what we see here is sort of 1 ounce of like what it's actually been doing in India for a very long time. So as I was talking about like how Tata has these different like defense subsidiaries, so it produces a lot of weapons directly for the Indian Army, and which are deployed like in Kashmir, in Bastar, in Chhattisgarh, like for Operation Kagar also. I think they've been using these they have some missile systems that they develop with partnerships with Israeli arms manufacturers and also independently. So they directly deploy those weapons through the border security forces of India and the Central Reserve Force and the Indian Army. Yeah, I've been doing that for a very long time, actually.
Yeah, I think, and there's more about that in the New York war crimes issue we did as well.
I had a pretty similar question to that, but so one thing that Aman, I think you brought up in your part of the research was the general strikes that happened in Italy. We saw thousands of workers come out from all different occupations against the to protect the flotillas that were going to break the blockade that was in Israel, that are on the waters. I'm wondering what you guys think is our role right now in the United States when it comes to these sort of big protests. Like, how do we get to that point where we do have the organized working class come out in droves to stop something like the genocide going on in Palestine, but also all sorts of different kind of world events? Because I think in the United States, the working class, we make up the majority, and we gotta figure out a way to get organized and also fight back against the capitalist class.
That is a very good question. And so with the Drop TCS campaign specifically, we've talked a lot about labor organizing, right? Within New York Roadrunners, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Within New York Roadrunners as well as at TCS, I think there's a lot to contend with, right? With TCS, as Aman mentioned, right, like they are sponsoring so many people that don't have citizenship status in the country, as well as they're the quote unquote, like tech is such a bubble where they consider themselves an elite class, right? When in reality, they're worker bees just like all of us. And so there's just not an incentive there for them to necessarily like build a broad coalition of workers. But within New York Roadrunners, we really do see an opening there. And it's just been a challenge in terms of capacity, right, for our campaign right now. So this is a plug to join us if that interests you. But no, I think that is the future, right? Like we do need to figure out, I think, as workers, how to build these coalitions. But I think it also comes down to a lack of class consciousness. And so I think campaigns like this will elucidate that. But no, I mean, I think that's a question we're all contending with, right? Within the movement and more broadly.
Any further questions? Always loop back to more questions after the other speakers come in. Okay, thank you. So maybe if Adib is here, could come up from NYRR. Thank you.
Salam everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Ooh, sorry. All right. My name is Adib. I'm not affiliated with NYRR. I just want to put that front and center. But I am here tonight as a comrade and as someone who will be running the marathon in about 2 weeks, and I've done it 2 years in a row before that. And I think what I want to be talking about tonight, specifically for anyone here who is interested in running the marathon, who is going to show out, is the importance of the New York City Marathon as a place to show up and be visible, right? Few people already spoke about how this marathon is in our backyard. It's a hometown marathon. But it's important to remember that it is more than just a hometown marathon. If you look at the numbers, as of last year, about 35% of participants in this marathon come from outside of the US. It is one of the 7 world major marathons. So it's not exclusive to New Yorkers. It's not exclusive to people in the US. For people who are local, it's about their streets, their bridges, their skylines, their parks. But when you actually show up at the marathon at the athletes' village, which is kind of the holding area before the race begins, more than an athletes' village, it's kind of like a global village because you see people from all over the world, you hear all kinds of languages. When you line up at the start, you see people from all over the world. It really dawns on you how this is much bigger than just another race or another run that you're doing, right? And I think when the whole world is showing up for an event like this, the whole world is watching, right? As of last year, close to 500 million homes worldwide tuned in to watch the marathon. That's a lot of people, right? And when the whole world is watching, I think even silence is a statement. Images and messages can carry so much weight rather than just no images or no messages. For one day of the year, which is the first Sunday of November, New York becomes the world stage. And I think on that day, it's almost our duty to make sure that the whole world is represented. Like, I've had very deep interactions with people at the marathon, people who are from Palestine, people who associate very deeply with the marathon itself. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I just had a little bit of a brief moment there. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm just got a little what was he there? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So for that day, where the whole world is watching, it's a unique opportunity for every runner, for every spectator, for every supporter to be out there and to just show out for Palestine and the Palestinian cause. I've, like I mentioned, been doing this race. I'm doing it again this year, and a question that comes up a lot and something that I've been thinking about is, why not just boycott the marathon, right? Like, what's the need to run it? And I think an important thing to remember when it comes to boycotting events is that it's a numbers game, right? For something like the New York City Marathon, for a boycott to truly be impactful, you need boycotts in a mass scale. And just because I've been thinking about this for a long time, I've done some funky math. If you guys want to dive deeper into that, we can chat later. But for every runner who runs the marathon, there are about 15 other people who want to be running it. So if the person running the marathon boycotts the marathon, there are 15 other people waiting to run it. So unless we can get a majority of the 16 people who want to run the marathon aligned with the Palestinian cause, I don't know if it's effective at the moment to boycott it. I think what's more effective is to use that stage to visibilize the campaign, to visibilize the Palestinian cause. And then eventually, hopefully, 16 of the 16 people who want to run the marathon are there for Palestine, right? And I think the marathon itself should belong to the people. It shouldn't belong to a sponsor. TCS, as has been covered already, is a plague, right? I grew up in India and I was nodding aggressively when the whole, illustration of how invasive Tata is in our lives. And it's kind of funny, like it's following me all the way. I've traveled thousands and thousands of miles away, but that's what it is, right? We want to, I think with the world major, as the New York City Marathon is, I think we should reclaim that as runners, as people who participate through even spectatorship. And yeah, I don't think any of this is on this slide. I don't know if there's when it comes to more tangible ways of being a part of that movement and hopefully getting to a stage where 16 of the 16 people who want to run are running for Palestine or for all sorts of liberation causes around the world, there's some things that we can do, right, to effectively build that campaign. As a few of the comrades mentioned earlier, we have these postcards. Let's sign them. Let's send them to NYRR. Flagging right there. I just went on a little bit of a spiel for the marathon runners. Join me. I'll be there on November 2nd, as will many others. Let's really make those 26 miles count, right? Let's move for the people who can't. Let's stand for the people who are being erased. I mentioned the 16-to-1 ratio, right? That's the marathon overall. But a more interesting ratio is 2:1. That is the number of people who are running specifically through NYRR initiatives. And I think there's a great opportunity here for us to convert 2 people to the cause than to convert 16 people to the cause, right? So join local running clubs, spread the message. Let's hopefully begin to galvanize the running community within New York, because again, that percentage of people who run the marathon through NYRR affiliation is I don't want to say it's an easy way to get in the marathon, but out of all of the ways to get in the marathon, that's the easiest, because you run a bunch of races in the year and then you get guaranteed entry, which is why the ratios are so close, because the people who are doing it really do want to run the marathon, as opposed to other people who are time qualifying. It's like a whole other spectrum. So yeah, join running clubs, spread the word, and then join this wonderful group of people. Let's build the campaign. Let's show out at Long Island City. Let's show out at the Harlem checkpoint. Let's show out at the expo. That's going to happen Thursday, Friday, Saturday through the end of 2 weeks from now. Let's distribute. Let's spread the word. Yeah. This is, okay. I'm going to hand it back.
So for the non-runners out there, you thought you were off the hook, but we actually have some call to actions for you guys as well. So baseline, I mean, we've kind of talked a lot about those postcards, but we do really want you guys to sign them. Also, give them to friends. We'll pre-post them for you. Just keep sending them out. And then in terms of like next steps for involvement, show up to the art builds that I mentioned, as well as, continue to like support us in terms of reaching out to community members and telling them about this campaign so we can continue to build our base. And then, yes, please come out to the marathon on November 2nd. We'll have solidarity sites across the route as well as some banner drops. So if any of that interests you, please just connect with us after. And then, yeah, you guys are also able to get involved. I'm not a runner. I ran the Gaza 5K last weekend and I am still in pain. So this is not just a runners only campaign. It does require community members that are invested in a free Palestine, as well as getting war profiteers out of the city. So we need all of us to be able to effectively illustrate our demands.
Thank you. And I think we have Shraddha from Palauda. Who is Shraddha? Oh.
I'm Shraddha. I'm from Pal Auda and also from Salam and a member of the India-Israel campaign. I just wanted to pop in very quickly and talk about a similar campaign that is also targeting corporations that has been in coalition with Salam and with a lot of the other Palestine related campaigns that are happening in the city. So you guys may have heard about the various campaigns that Pal Auda does. That is the Right of Return Coalition, and it's an organization that does Palestine solidarity work specifically focused on right of return and resistance based here in New York City. And for the last 2 years, Pal Auda has run a campaign specifically on Citibank, which, as you know, is the extremely hegemonic bank that is also the largest foreign financial presence in the Zionist entity itself. And so the Palo Alto Citibank campaign, similar to the Tata campaign, focuses on targeting Citibank's complicity and also targeting Citibank's brand. A lot of what we talked about today in terms of Tata is the widespread branding that Tata has and the fact that it is very much prevalent in everyday life and is so normalized. And similarly, Citibank has an extremely widespread presence and a PR, whether that's the city bikes that you're riding or just seeing Citibank chapters everywhere. And so what we're doing as part of our campaign, similar to the Tata campaign, is raising awareness for the fact that Citibank is actively financing the Zionist entity through its bonds towards the Israeli government and its bonds towards specific defense and weapons manufacturers. And also the ways in which it has been an engine of the climate crisis and the fossil fuel industry. So specifically, obviously bank campaigns are very complicated because the alternatives are hard to find, and it's not necessary that, boycotting one particular bank means that the other ones are necessarily better. However, the reason why this campaign has specifically focused on Citibank is because it is, as I mentioned previously, the largest foreign financial institution in the Zionist entity. And in addition, there's a long history of climate activism against Citibank specifically. And Citibank was one of the banks that was targeted during the apartheid South Africa time, and it successfully led to the bank pulling out of apartheid South Africa. So there is a precedent of this type of campaign working. It just involves a lot of numbers, it involves a lot of awareness and a lot of coalition building. And Citibank, like a lot of corporations, is intimately tied to Tata as well. Citibank India has served as a key partner for Tata Group's companies, and it has provided financial services like corporate banking, treasury management, and trade financing for Tata. So all of these corporations are obviously very much connected and are very much the engines of capital that are then fueling occupation and genocide and apartheid. So we're very proud to stand here as members of many of these campaigns in terms of the people who are present here, and we're very eager to sort of continue the various collaborations that the campaigns are doing. In terms of the immediate goals, it's just a matter of raising as much awareness as we can and really disrupting the brand and PR that Citibank has. And then in terms of other goals, we want to bring Citibank into the discourse of broader national boycotts, bringing it to the attention of BDS National Committee. And similarly with the Tata campaign, I think there's a shared goal in making this campaign a very central aspect of the boycott campaigns and the Palestine solidarity campaigns that exist already in the United States, and just recognizing how all of our corporate campaigns are very much tied to one another. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Shraddha. Some postcards have been going around, so you've probably got your hands on those. If you want to fill them and leave them behind, we can post them for you. There's also more postcards, so you can also take them and hand out. Okay. And I think someone from DSA is here. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Sammy, and I'm here representing New York City Democratic Socialists of America, NYC DSA's Break the Chain campaign, which is focused on enacting a people's arms embargo in the New York and New Jersey metropolitan area. So I think it ties in really well to a lot of the stuff we've been talking about like logistics and shipping and like really breaking that material supply chain that's supplying the genocide in Gaza. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the overview. Our demand is a people's arms embargo, so to basically mobilize people power, the power of New Yorkers, workers, community members, to end the supply of weapons and military equipment to Israel. And the way that we're going about that is by trying to build up a popular, labor-driven campaign of public pressure. Next slide. We also like to situate this in terms of the broader international movement for people's arms embargo. As somebody I think mentioned recently, the Italian workers went on a general strike in support of the Simoon flotilla. There have also been dock workers in Spain, Morocco, France, Greece, and lots of other places who have refused to load ships with weapons that they knew were bound for Israel. Obviously, the terrain, as someone has also brought up in a great question, the terrain in the US looks a little bit different, right? With like the ILA, for example, breaking their strikes specifically to continue to load weapons. So that's like something we're dealing with. But I mean, we also have hope that like there are elements in U.S. labor that are aligned with us, and also, you know, we can build popular power on a number of fronts. Next slide. So that gets to kind of the three main branches of this campaign. So this is kind of like a local iteration of Labor for an Arms Embargo, which you might have heard of before. It's like a national campaign trying to mobilize unionized workers towards an arms embargo. They've had like some great successes in places like Oakland, where the, again, like kind of terrain of struggle around the unions looks a little bit different than it does here. Our second branch is a field operation. So we've been tabling, actually doing something really similar where we were collecting postcards to send to Maersk in collaboration with PYM's Mask Off Maersk campaign. And also just talking to community members, getting people plugged in. Like, we actually have made a lot of connections just by like being out there, being in the parks, like talking to people. So that's been really great. And then the third aspect, which is what I'm mostly working on, is kind of a policy aspect where we're looking into targeting the New York, New Jersey Port Authority, because they manage, honestly, this should have gone early in the presentation, but the Port Authority is like a big target of ours because they are like a publicly appointed board that is responsible for managing basically all the airports, the seaports, the bridges, the tunnels in the New York, New Jersey area, interstate crossings as well, including JFK, which does allow shipments of weapons and materials, including explosive materials, to leave its facilities, sometimes on civilian flights, and Port Elizabeth, which is where Maersk berths on the New Jersey side, actually. So we're looking into basically legislative policy and roads to target the Port Authority, whether through elected officials, through legal pathways, and stuff like that. Next slide. So yeah, this is kind of some of the stuff we've been up to. Again, we did these tablings where we were collecting signed postcards, and then that kind of culminated in a recent picket at Maersk. We have been running worker circles and organizer trainings for union members, so just trying to connect people and bring people together from different unions who are interested in like passing a resolution through their local, perhaps, even if it's not necessarily like the ILA. We've had people like flight attendants and mariners, like people in related industries, or even the Association of Legal Advocates and Attorneys, the ALAA. They're local in New York, recently passed an arms embargo resolution specifically endorsing this campaign, which might not seem, you know, like they're just like lawyers. They're obviously not really working at the ports, but like we're trying to create a culture within union organizing that like is less afraid to take a stand against imperialism, basically. And then, yeah, the third part is more of the research aspect and working on creating like propaganda materials, reports to like publicize this information, and also to bring to like elected officials and people who might be able to kind of help us enact a policy kind of aspect of this campaign. Next slide. So one thing you could do right now that we would really appreciate is scan this QR code to sign our petition to the Port Authority, telling them to stop shipping weapons out of their facilities. This is really like the first step in a larger process of building up popular pressure and really like building that people power to target the Port Authority. So thank you very much. Give everyone a minute to fill that out. You can go to the next slide. I'll continue while you are. I have so many QR codes for you to scan. The next one is if you are interested in joining the campaign. I don't mean to like poach, but I don't know if you have extra capacity that you're not using for Salam. And you can follow us on Instagram at breakthechain4pal, and any inquiries, if you have like connections, tips, anything like that, want to ask questions, that can go to the DSA anti-war working group email, which is antiwar@socialist.nyc. So feel free to take a picture of this slide or whatever. And I think I just have one more. Okay. The last thing is even more QR codes. We have a union member organizer training and a workers circle coming up. So if you are in a union, if you're interested in passing an arms embargo resolution in your union, these would be great things to show up to. The difference is that the union member organizing training is more so kind of like the concrete skills of like, how do I begin to like bring this up in my union, and like what are other examples of like arms embargo resolutions that unions have passed. Whereas the workers circle is more for like bringing people who are already working on something like this together to kind of like talk and strategize. So it's more like strategic focus, and then the organizing training is more like concrete skills. Yeah, I think that's what I got. Thank you so much for having me, and this was very informative.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So before we come around to doing closing the live stream and doing the breakouts, I just wanted to create some time. If there are any questions that you would like to raise again as a group before we go into small breakout groups. Okay, so 1 and 2.
Thanks. I have a question for our DSA comrade, if that's okay. Sure. So this might be a little all over the place, but I'm a rank and file member of RWDSU, and I spoke with someone about the Break the Chain campaign, and I think something I guess I'm wondering like if you could speak more to the idea of just like popularizing arms embargo resolutions just across labor, because I think I feel like I work in a coffee shop, and I feel like I know it's important to bring the movement for Palestine everywhere, but I was sort of like, no, I want to go help talk to dock workers, or like talk to workers at the airport who are like moving weapons. You know, there was a sort of like, for me, and like a sort of ache to like be right at the heart of it, even though I know, the ILA is like such. I guess I'm curious about what developing that prong of this campaign looked like, or if you could speak more to that. And also, what has organizing workers, like the longshoremen, looked like? And like, what are some of those conversations going like? Like how, I like that it's like these two prongs, because obviously, Palestine has to be everywhere. And also, those are the workers with the power to like directly withhold their labor. But I'm, curious, like as someone who personally struggled to be like how can this be directly connected? And obviously it's RWDSU is bigger than just my my coffee shop, but that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That is a really good question, and honestly something that we're definitely having to like think about and work through. And obviously our sort of like ultimate goal, or in a dream world, it would be great to have American dock workers say we're going to go on strike for Palestine. It is difficult to make those connections right away, especially when it's like, oh, it's these like socialist organizers coming in from outside, like whatever. But I think one of the, I guess how I think about this is like we've been talking about how integrated different aspects of like the supply chain and of production are with each other on every level, like internationally within the US as well. That is both something that like makes it feel so big and like monstrous and like it's everywhere and it's difficult to defeat. And it also is kind of an in for us because like, JFK has a Starbucks. They're not unionized, but because of like franchising stuff. But like there are actually like weird connections that you might not necessarily think about. And there are folks who maybe have worked as union organizers and moved around to like different industries and so have connections in different industries, right? So it's hard because I can't be like, okay, if you unionize your coffee shop or whatever, like that will have like a direct measurable impact. But at the same time, I think we've kind of got to get creative a little bit. And like, as we have been building, we have been like growing connections and meeting people in ways that are like kind of unexpected. Like I think I mentioned, we have met like a United flight attendant who is interested in like flight attendants have recently gone on strike for anti-immigration stuff, for instance. Or we met somebody who does like, I don't know what a mariner is, but he's a mariner. So he like works on the ships instead of like loading them. So there's like lots of different kind of, I guess, potential avenues there and like ways to disrupt, because labor is everywhere and everyone depends on labor to some extent, and every step in the supply chain depends on another step in the supply chain. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer, but thank you for that question, and we'd love to have you at a training.
Okay, and then I'll come to you.
Sorry, this is not planned, but I'm actually going to advertise a campaign that I'm working on with Pal Auda and port workers and communities for Palestine, because we are at the port. So I do have an answer to that question as it relates to the ILA. We have tried the ILA, as we know that the conditions are that they're right-wing, they're fascist, they do want to continue to ship military cargo. However, we have attempted with rank and file. We've gone to like hiring halls, we've gone to leadership as well. And from what we've heard, with the port workers and the truckers especially, that's been the focus of our campaign, as to secondary targets like always forwarding, like freight forwarding companies. And Zim is Israel's largest and oldest shipping company. So the reference that you had with Italy, that was Zim, Virginia, actually. And we in Livorno and at the port, and we actually went to that same exact port months before, and we picketed outside of Maher Terminal in the Port of Elizabeth. And it was actually the same exact ship that was the ship that then they would later protest. So I think just wanting to name that reference. You could follow us at Port Workers, the number 4 Palestine on Instagram. But Zim is something that is not talked about enough, and this is also an international campaign. And when we mentioned Oakland, the Block the Boat campaign, that was also Zim. So just wanted to point that out there, that there are efforts that have been made for outreach for truckers that we do on a ongoing basis. We have comrades here that are also part of the campaign. So come find us.
Actually, this isn't really much of this isn't really a question. It's just something I just wanted to point out very quickly, and I'll just be very quick in this. It's about boycotting, the whole practice of that, and I just want to point out that boycotting is it is a multi-edged sword. It's it's not like it's easy as like 1, 2, 3 or black and white. It's like I'm talking from experience, and also from like I know I would say not from my own experience, but from an example, especially like with what happened with the Starbucks when it came to boycotting Starbucks in relation to the genocide. I think this is in Malaysia, in Starbucks Malaysia. They experienced the company experienced like a big amount of losses because of the as a result of the boycott. So which actually in a way that was a good sign that it was working, but instead the the higher ups, they decided to retaliate by trying to sue the activists, and like just to say, just an example of so it's just something you just got to be careful about, like to be prepared for that. And I don't want to go into any more details, like about like why it's a multi-edged sword, but like I just wanted to point that out quickly. Right.
Then we can start going into the breakout groups, and we'll end the live stream at this point. Those who are from SALAM facilitating, could you please raise your hands at this point? I'll be one of the people. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so maybe we'll be in 5 parts of the room, so I can be up here if you could go there, and if the 2 of you could take the 2 back corners. So we'll cluster in groups